حسينا حسينا
والحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. صدق الله العلي العظيم. 2 nights ago we discussed one of the contentious relations between modernity, or let's call it the secularism and materialistic view, with that of religion. And tonight we will continue with the same subject. And of course the subject of tonight is considered to be the main subject of contention, and other issues are considered to be, relatively much smaller than the issue that we will discuss tonight. And the issue that we are talking about tonight, it is whether science, the natural science, is compatible with religion and with spirituality. So this is the whole point of today's lecture, that we will be touching about science and how or whether it is compatible with the religious point of view. Now, where does the problem arise? It arises from a simple question, and that question is, how was life originated on the face of the planet? Was it through an instant creation that God has made? For example, He created those many millions of species and living things around the planet, or it was a gradual and a step-by-step process that started from very few, simple, and primitive living things that eventually led to spread of the living things that came into many varieties. To such kind of a step, to such kind of a process is called evolution. So the question, whether this creation, this living thing that have been originated on the face of the planet, has it been through evolution or instant creation? That's the whole subject. Now, before the advancement of science, the common notion, the common belief, it was that God, the Almighty God, has created the living things one by one, all in the primordial time, sometimes very, very back and far away. He has created the variety of those living things. But once the evolution theory has emerged and it was formulated, It gave a new look into the origin of life. It says no, it were only a few and probably one living thing that was very simple and primitive, and over a long period of time, this living thing has evolved and has given rise to so many different species that we see today. This is the whole thing. This is the whole subject. So in my talk today, first of all, I will explain what is the evolution theory and what is evolution. What do we mean by evolution? Second, what does it say? What are the two important conclusions out of this theory? And how we respond to these two important conclusions from an Islamic point of view. But all of this will be done after your big and loud salawat. I said big and loud salawat. I did not say a faint salawat. And for the third time, sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. So the question, what is evolution? We hear about evolution in different places, many times. But sometimes we have no idea. What does it mean? What are they trying to say? Evolution, brothers and sisters, is simple. Just keep this in mind. I will try to avoid any kind of technical and scientific terms. Make it very, very simple to everybody, so the entire general audience can have a benefit of my talk. I would not become a scientist, although consider it a biology class, but I will make it very simple and very easy. Evolution, by definition, meaning any progressive development in the biology of the population of living things. Imagine we have a population, whether it's an animal population or a human population. The change over time, the development over time, in their biology, that help them, that will result in their survival, their ability to survive and reproduce, is called evolution. I will give you examples to understand what I mean. Imagine here in Dearborn, Michigan. Nowadays, and this is only imagination, that if you look at the population, someone will come and tell you 90% of the population, they have black colored eyes, as compared to 10% who have hazel colored eyes. You say, okay, you record this data, you close the book, and you leave. You come back 50 years from now. You check again the population. They tell you, remember those 90% of people who had black colored eyes? Those have changed. Now they are only 15%. While 85% of the population, they have hazel colored eyes. Here you say there happened to be an evolution. This population has evolved from a black colored eyes to a hazel colored eyes. This is called evolution. I will give you another example. Imagine in your backyard, you have a backyard. Next to this backyard, behind this backyard, you have a big field. In that field, there are a bunch of rabbits. Plenty of rabbits. One in different colors and different sizes. One of those rabbits, who happen to be a black rabbit, also is a fast rabbit. Faster than other rabbits. Now, the fact that this rabbit is fast make him able to run away from the predators. You know, there are hawks, falcons, snakes on the ground who attack the rabbits and eat them. But this particular rabbit is strong enough to run away fast. Okay, you're with me? When he runs fast, what does it mean? It means that he has a high chance of survival. Again, you look at this scene, you leave it, you come back after 20 years. When you come back after 20 years, you check the field, you see, wow, the entire field has turned to black rabbits. There is no other rabbits that have different colors except this, the black rabbits. What is your conclusion? The conclusion is that this rabbit has survived due to the fact that he was fast, in running. He escaped death, he survived. Others could not. They have been hunted by the predators. They could not survive. This guy, he survived and reproduced, and now you see his offsprings. He died. Probably 10 years ago he died. But those black rabbits that you see all are his offsprings. Therefore you say that there is an evolution took place in this field. That the population of rabbits has changed from variety of rabbits to a black color rabbit. Here is an evolution. So basically, brothers and sisters, we say that we have a plenty of traits, features, like what? Like the hair color, eye color, the color of the skin, the height, and different kinds of features that we can name them. Those features that we transfer them from one generation to another generation. The parents transfer their traits to their next generation. Any change that takes place for those features, instead of, for example, the parents who carry a blue eyes, but their children don't have a blue eyes, this change over time is considered to be the evolution. So far so good? Yes? If yes, then I need to hear a big salawat. Don't make me repeat things, okay? Just please listen and see what I'm saying. Okay, who has come up with this notion? Who has discovered this? There is a scientist called Charles Darwin, back in 1859, who wrote a book after he did an extensive studies. He came up with this idea. And this idea of evolution, he called it natural selection. Meaning that we have those traits that I talked to you about. Those traits, either they become more common or less common over time by the selection of nature. Nature will select those traits to make that individual organism able to survive and reproduce. That's what he has said. Now, he postulated further things. He said, throughout the natural history of the planet, this planet Earth was made more than 5 billion years ago. The first time that a living thing started to live, it was about 4 billion years ago. From that time, since then, we have a natural history of living things. So he said, through this natural history of living things, there happen to be many biological and ecological severe conditions. Like what? Like earthquake, volcanoes, tornadoes, hurricanes, diseases, cancer, whatever, name them. Throughout the history that made those severe conditions facing the living things, each living thing, each animal had to face those conditions. There happened to be 3 possibilities. The first possibility is that those severe conditions will kill the living thing. The living thing cannot survive, dies, either due to earthquake, volcano, disease, any kind of thing that makes him unable to continue. That living thing dies. So this is one possibility. The second possibility is that the living thing, nothing will happen to. Stay strong and fit and able. You see, in the first example, we have a very good example, the dinosaurs. They were giant animals, lived on the face of the planet, but eventually they become extinct. Why? Due to the severe natural conditions. So one possibility is that the living thing dies and cannot survive. The other possibility No, the living thing can stay fit, and nothing will change. You stay very strong. The third possibility, which is the most common one, is that the living things start to adjust to the new condition. But how? By a modification within his own biology. He modifies, not he himself like he's doing it intentionally. Nature mandates that this living things, in order to survive, he has to get accommodated by the new realities. So any change that takes place on the biology of this animal is considered to be an evolution. So he postulated this thing. Then he come up with his controversial idea. And that is, life has started from very, very, very few simple and primitive living things. By time, those living things started to thrive, grow, and diversify. So those living things that we see today, basically, we are the descendants of those few common and simple living things in the past. This theory is called the theory of common descent. He said this one. After a couple years, he died and went to hell. That was Charles Darwin. That's the end of the story. Now, the new discoveries and the new advancement of science came to approve what Charles Darwin has said about 150 years ago. What did it say? He said his words back in 1859. Right in 1869, there was a molecule, a substance has been discovered in the cell of the living things. And that molecule was named DNA. I'm sure all of you have heard of that name. It was a Friedrich Miescher who has discovered this substance. He said that this substance is a tiny microscopic molecule that found in the center of the cell. Now, what is DNA? You see, brothers and sisters, we, as a human being right now, we are made of what? If you look at us, we are made from flesh, bones, and fluids. Those are all inside. The outside is skin and hair. That covers those three things: the flesh, the blood, and the fluid. Are you with me so far? But if you dig in more details and check this body, the skin, for example, or the flesh, or the bone, you grab it, put it under the microscope, you will be amazed. You will see that basically we are not made up of flesh or bones or fluids. We are made up from billions upon billions of cells. And I am sure all of you have heard about cells. Each cell has to have a core, a center. That center is called the nucleus. Inside that nucleus, this little substance, the molecule DNA, rests inside that nucleus, that center of the cell. So far, so good? Now, what does this DNA do? Back in 1953, there were two scientists. One of them is called Watson, the other one called Crick. Those two have discovered that this DNA is like a ladder, a twisted ladder. Now, this twisted ladder, they opened it up, they checked it, and they found that it has about 3.1 billion of parts. How can I, make it, bring this story close to your attention? Imagine the speed. Imagine that this bead is a DNA. Those little beads are considered to be the parts of those DNA. Now the DNA has two strands. One strand here, the other one is right here. And in each strand, there are billions upon billions of those small parts. Basically, human being has 3.1 billion of those parts. Now, when they checked carefully,
they saw that those parts basically are only 4 in kind. They're not that different, they are only 4 different kinds. But their repeatings has made them different. They have been set in a way that they become unique from one person to another person. The repeating unit is different. Imagine you have marbles. How many marbles here we have on the floor? Plenty, right? But those marbles are only 4 kinds. They're not more. They gave them letters. They gave them names. They called them A, T, C, and G. Perfect. A, T, C, and G. Don't forget this. I'm going to quiz you at the end. Okay? So, when they checked this one, after a lengthy study, they figured, remember I told you about the traits and features that we transfer from us to the next generation? To our children, for example? It is those things that we transfer. The DNA is the agent of heredity. It is the DNA who has the information of us, who tells how the color of the eye should be, how the color of the hair should be, how tall I am, what is the color of my skin. All has to do with this DNA. Basically, this DNA, you can consider it as an instruction manual of our synthesis. You see, when you go and buy an electronic device, first what do you check? You check the instruction manual, right? You want to see how you will operate this system. The same thing. The DNA is considered to be the instruction manual of our bodies. There is no living things, no matter how many they are, millions. All of those millions of living things, they should have a DNA. How is it going so far? Are you lost somewhere? If you're not lost, then I need a big loud salawat. So, eventually it was boiled down to DNA. This DNA is the instruction manual. It is this DNA that's sitting in the core of the cell. Commands. First of all, it makes a courier, a messenger called a messenger RNA. Then send this messenger outside of the nucleus of the cell, tells him go to the soldiers of the body, and those soldiers are the proteins. Tell him, shows him the map, shows him the instruction. The proteins look at the instruction and start, based on the instruction that they receive, they start build the entire body. They are the laborers of the body. They make the cells, they make the tissues, they make the muscles, they make the bones, they make the hair, and you name it. It is those, the proteins. But those are soldiers. Who is the commander? The commander is the DNA. The DNA tell them what to do. Now, as they studied more and more, it turns to be that, remember those repeating units that we said they are 3.1 billion? It turns to be every 3 of those parts, those bases, remember A, T, C, and G, every 3 of those, they form a code. They tell the protein what to do by that code. The protein look at the code, understand what is going on, and does its function. So it is the code that tells the protein what to do. It is the code that ends up in a creation of me and you and the rest of the animal. It is those 3 letter codes. Okay, so far there is no problem. The DNA is the commander. The DNA is the chief. He tells the proteins what to do. The proteins create the entire living things. The proteins perform their duties in order to have a full functioning living thing. Now the DNA also is a transfer to the new generation, and the new generation also start to work. Where's the problem? If you remember well, brothers and sisters, we said that every single cell has to have this DNA. There is no cell without a DNA. You cannot have a cell that does not have a DNA. Now, the cells, they have a specific amount of life. After a period of life, a period of time, they die. You see, brothers and sisters, the one that you are sitting right now on this chair, you are not the same guy that were 10 years ago. And you are not the same person 10 years from now. You have completely changed. Those cells that we have right now, they die and new cells come. And new cells will be forming. We, if you look, we say, no, it's I am myself. But if you check at our components, the cells, those are not the same cells that were 10 years ago. And new ones have come, more and more, the cells keep dividing. So as the cells divide, what should happen? This DNA goes with this cell or with this cell. You see, you have a cell, and this cell needs to be cut into two pieces and form one cell here, one cell here. And we said that each cell has to have a DNA. So where this DNA goes, before the cell divides, the DNA copies itself. Make a copy. So instead of having one DNA, it forms another DNA. Once there are two DNAs, the cells divide into two pieces. So far, so good. Now, when this copying process takes place, you see you have a template. This template creates another copy. When it makes this copy, and this is 3 billions of parts, in this process of copying, the DNA make a mistake. Remember those repeating units, 3.1 billion repeating units, A, T, C, and G? In some of those areas, it make a mistake. For example, instead of putting G, it puts a C. Instead of putting T, it puts an A in a specific area on the DNA. Is there a problem? The scientists tell you there are 3 possibilities. Remember the 3 possibilities of Darwin? Look carefully. The scientists tell you this. When the mistake happens, meaning when there is an error taking place, a new command will take place. Because why? Because the code has changed. Remember we said that every 3 of those form a code. Now if one of them has changed, a new code would form. Not the same old code. You're with me so far? So a new code forms. Now when you end up having new codes, meaning you tell the proteins to form a different command than the previous one. Here the scientists say that there are 3 possibilities. When a mistake happens, it could do nothing. That living thing stay alive. As if there is no problem at all. And that's what happens in many people, in many individuals. So this is one possibility. The second possibility, no, that change could be a detrimental that eventually kills that living thing. I'm sure all of you have heard about cancer. What is cancer? Cancer is when this DNA becomes crazy and changes its sequence. When that change takes place in a crucial area, it becomes a killing matter and kills the individual. You see, there is one very common disease, a genetic disease here in the US. It's called cystic fibrosis. Have you heard of cystic fibrosis? The people who are, Anglo-Saxons, white Anglo-Saxons, have been inflicted by this disease more than any other population. This disease, which eventually kills the individual at age 20, between 15 to 25, it kills the individual. This disease, based on a change of a single letter, one C. There is only one letter that has to be G, it changed to become C. G to C has killed an individual, a single tiny letter. So this is a second possibility. The first possibility, it doesn't do anything. The second possibility, it means that it kills. The third possibility, it gives an enhancement. That individual gets modified, get adjusted to the new realities, to the new environment. So far, so good. That's what Darwin has been saying. Darwin was saying that based on those findings, evolution takes place. Now, as we get enhanced, as those living things started to enhance, they start to diversify. They become multiples. And instead of having one species, you will end up having 2 species, 3 species, and keep going. And here, we end up having a variety of living things. That's what he has said. Brothers and sisters, based on evidence, whoever studies the evidence cannot say anything but say that Darwin was right. Why? Because if we take our DNA, okay, who has happened, I mean, there were scientists who came, took our DNA, and compared it with the rest of the animal's DNA. So when they took a human DNA and compared it to the fruit fly DNA, it turns to be that there are 24% of this long DNA has a perfect homology, meaning they have similarity. 24% of our DNA resembles 24% of fruit fly. When they check the human DNA with a mice DNA, it turns to be 85% homology. 85% of our DNA is exact same thing. Meaning only 15% of this DNA has made me as a human and has made that animal a mice. Only 15%. When they checked the human DNA with a gorilla DNA and a chimp DNA, it turns to be 99% similar. Are you with me? You see the point here? Therefore, Darwin has said that all those living things that you see have started from a common ancestors. You see, brothers and sisters, the theory of evolution has many practicality. I will give you a few things. You have heard about HIV virus, right? The AIDS virus. Up to now, it was discovered back in 1980. Up to now, there is no cure for that virus. Why? Because it keeps changing in evolution. It evolves itself. From time to time, it changes its DNA. They cannot catch him. It evolves to a new version. They cannot catch him. This is one way. You've heard about the influenza outbreak. We used to have bird flu. A few years ago, we had, the swine flu and other different kind of flus. What are those for? Those are all have to do with their genetic codes. They keep changing. The agent of this flu, the virus, keep changing in its genetic code. It evolves. They cannot catch it. I will give you something more important. You get sick. You go to the doctor writes you a prescription. You go to the pharmacy and get the medicine. You take the medicine and you are healed. Do you know, before taking the medicine, first of all, the FDA had to approve that medicine to say, yes, you can take it? Do you know, before the approval, they have taken the medicine. First, they gave it to the mice. Then they gave it to the horse. Then they gave it to the monkey. Once they saw the result, they came and gave it to us. Do you know about this fact or not? Why do they do this? Why don't they give it to the whale, for example? Why don't they give it to the shark? Why they go give it to the monkey? Due to the what? Due to the evolution theory. Because evolution theory has said that there is a communism. Therefore, we see the beauty of evolution theory. That's why, brothers and sisters, I can say fully, with full confidence, that evolution is the elegant way of God in the creation. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the living things. So this is the first part. Now where is the problem? There are two problems. I will tell you after your loud salawat. The first one, as I told you, when we say that there were a few species that has given rise to so many species and living things, including a human being. Therefore, the Darwinists and naturalists, they say that the species of the primates, or Homo sapiens, they have 4 different families that have a common ancestor. The orangutans, humans, chimpanzees, and gorillas. Meaning that we share common ancestor. This is number 1 problem. Are you with me? This is one important issue that comes directly from the theory of evolution. The second part, which was not done by Darwin himself, rather by Darwinists, what did they say? They say, okay, if we believe in evolution, and we say that this has taken place due to the change of DNA, due to the mistakes of DNA, and those mistakes are random, just by nature, spontaneous, they make a mistake. So over time, we ended up having so many living species that has, contributed to the creations. So basically, there is no need to believe that there is a superpower, super intelligent being who has designed the whole creations. The creations have evolved by themselves. Basically, there is no need to believe there is a God. Are you with me? Why? Due to the fact what they have seen over the DNA change. When the DNA changes by itself, without any warning, without any ruling, just spontaneously make a mistake, then they say, okay, this mistake was the cause of the diversity of animals. Therefore, why would I believe in such a superpower who has made the animals, made a human being, made the lion, made the tiger, and so forth? We say that all of this has done by the evolution. And evolution was a spontaneous process. What is the answer? You see, brothers and sisters, let's answer them one by one. First, let's answer the God issue. We say, this is a fallacy. Do not look at the creation from the time that the living thing started on the face of a planet. This is only 4.7 billion years ago. Go much back then, much farther than this. Go back, take it to the early times. Ask this question, how this universe was made, or if it really was made. You see the point? The life on the planet did not come out of nowhere. There were certain conditions. We had to have elements, we had to have atoms, we had to have water as well in order for the living things to start to evolve. So the good question, go to the very first moment of the creation. If there is any moment of a creation, ask this question, what has happened? Those scientists who had inclinations for being agnostic, or atheist, they have come up before. That was at the beginning of last century. They come up to say that this universe is a primordial, meaning that there is no point of origin. It does not have a point of origin. It never started. It was ever there. If you go billions and billions and billions of years, you will see that this universe was there in a state that called the steady state position. Meaning that matter and energy will come and they change from phase to phase. You see, the first law of thermodynamics and physics says that energy does not get destroyed nor created. Rather, it changes phase to phase. This is called the law of conservation of energy and matter. So those agnostics have said that this universe is a primordial, does not have any point of origin. Why would they say this? Because the minute that they say that this universe has an origin, the second question comes, who has caused it? Or what has caused it? You see, I tell you here is nothing. All of a sudden this glass was sitting here. Then you would tell me who put it here. This is a natural question. This is a logical question. All of you have dealt with it. It is called cause and effect. It is taught in English, in literature, in philosophy, in computer science, and above all in natural science. Any phenomenon should have a cause. It cannot be without a cause. So if there is a point of origin, meaning at one moment it was nothing, then all of a sudden it becomes something. So the first question you would ask, how did it happen? What has caused this to become something? Are you with me? So those people who were atheists and agnostic, they were aware. The minute that they say that the universe has an origin, obviously the question becomes who has caused it, and they have no answer for that. Back in 1928, there was an astrophysicist called Edwin Hubble. Edwin Hubble, based on his discoveries and studies, have dealt a fatal blow to the notion of a steady state position, meaning that he said, accurately has studied and described a point of origin of this universe. That point of origin is called the Big Bang theory. I'm sure all of you have heard of that theory. What does it say? It says that about 14 billion years ago, they were tiny, very, very tiny matter. However, this tiny matter was very, very much full of energy and heat and density. All of a sudden, that particle has expanded to form the universe. Now, he has studied this and has shown his, experiment. We're not going to go through this. But he has showed that this universe had a start. At the very, very moment, he could not describe what has happened. But as in a split of a second, he said that this universe has become so much in expansion and become so much wide. That is the study of Edwin Hubble. Afterward, whoever comes to study this phenomenon came to affirmation, come to confirm Edwin Hubble's theory of the Big Bang. The Big Bang theory is a strong blow to those people who say that this universe was a primordial. It tells us that it has a time of origin. Now, this time of origin, the scientists called a singularity point. What is a singularity point? They say that at this point, there was nothing. From that point, time and space and energy started to exist. Meaning before that time, there wasn't anything called time. Nor space, nor energy. Now, how is it possible that something happens by itself? Is this something possible? Why? Because it defies the law of physics. You see, brothers and sisters, this universe, our planet, our solar system, the galaxies, all are governed by physical laws. And they are called laws. One of them is the law of gravity. This is a law. It's a fact. It was there for billions of years, the law of gravity. If we believe that the Big Bang was spontaneous by itself, then it defies the laws of physics. How did it happen spontaneous? Why? Because the question, where did the matter come from? Where did the energy come from? The first law of physics says that energy cannot be created. If it were nothingness and all of a sudden becomes something, then it should have some energy. Where did the energy come? Not only it defies the first law, it defies the second law of thermodynamics. What is the first law of thermodynamics? It tells you that this universe is tending toward disorder, become more and more disorder. When you look at the solar system, when you look at the galaxy system, do you come up with this notion that this universe is in disorder? Or in a very, very fine order? Look at how the planets revolve around the sun, and how the solar system revolves around other systems, and how is our galaxy revolving around other galaxies? This is a very fine, very organized system. So it cannot be spontaneous. If someone says it's spontaneous, as if someone would tell you, I am going to be building a big building. We'll construct a big building in a very easy way. I will go and put all the matters, all the blocks in the middle of the field. Then I put dynamite and I explode them. When I explode them, all of a sudden you will end up seeing a building. This is called, you know, a spontaneous thing. If we believe that there is a Big Bang that happens, it cannot be spontaneous. It must be someone has directed it. So the first point, that the evolution should not have someone to direct it or some entity like that, like God, is foolish. There must be something, and that's what science has approved. So this is the first point. But what is the other point, brothers and sisters? You know, they have said that human and other primates, they share common ancestor. Is that true? To be very honest with you, brothers and sisters, I myself don't know. When we examine the Quranic verses, brothers and sisters, and here we have to be very enlightened and very objective. When we study the Quranic verses, we see there is no direct and explicit mention of the creation of a human being. It says that God has created a human being from clay. إِنِّي خَالِقٌ بَشَرًا مِنْ طِينٍ. God talks to the angels and tell them that He will create a human being. But the process of creation is not explicitly mentioned in the Holy Quran. Rather, there are some verses that I personally, myself, can feel it talks about the evolution. It talks in a way that things have evolved. Like what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one verse says, إِنِّي خَالِقٌ بَشَرًا مِنْ مَاءٍ. If I am reciting the ayat correctly. In one verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said to the malaika, to the angels, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ إِنِّي خَالِقٌ بَشَرًا مِنْ طِينٍ. I am creating this out of a clay. But then in another verse, it says, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. We have created out of water every living thing. Science approves this fact. Says that living things started from water, from sea, from ocean. So basically, if you want to put this evidence with the Quranic verses, again, I'm saying may. It may conclude to this fact that God is talking about something called evolution. It requires someone who has much more knowledge than I am, with a brighter mind, can study very well, can check the religious literature, and look at science and come up with a very strong conclusion. But when I look and see what Quran has said, for example, it can make sense if someone would say that evolution has been mentioned in Quran. You see, brothers and sisters, when God has created Adam and Eve, and then He created their children. What is their name? Cain and Seth? Or Cain and Abel? Habil and Qabil? Now, those should have wives, should have had wives. Where their wives came from? Some say that their wives were their sisters, that they married their sisters, but that definitely stay in conflict with the religious teaching. You know, it cannot be possibly someone marries his sister, especially if that person is the son of the prophet. Therefore, if God has created Adam and Eve, and those wives of Habil and Qabil were there, and they don't belong to Adam and Eve, to whom they belong to? They must be having an origin different than Adam, different than Eve. So what I'm trying to say, if someone knowledgeable enough to study the Quran, to study the Islamic literatures, and check the scientific evidence, then he or she can come up with this very good conclusion that maybe there is an evolution. After all, brothers and sisters, look at this. What is the miraculous nature of Adam? When God has created Adam, what is so special about Adam? It is his flesh, his body. God has created so many animals that are much bigger than a human being. That was not the important thing. The important thing when he created the soul of Adam. You see, when God talked to the angels, told them that I am creating a human being. He says, إِنِّي خَالِقٌ بَشَرًا مِنْ طِينٍ. Then he tells them, فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُ وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. It says, whenever I blow in this creature from my spirit, that person, that a human being becomes significant. At that time, prostrate for him. At that time, show your respect. So brothers and sisters, whatever is special about a human being is not the flesh. It is not the body, rather the spirit. The soul that is important. It is not the flesh. So maybe, I would say, let's say if it turns to be that the human beings share common ancestors with the other primates. But that was the flesh only. But the soul is completely different. The spirit is completely different. Therefore, again I am saying that we need some bright individuals who can master the religious studies and science and study and come up with a conclusion. To me, brothers and sisters, when I look, I see He's the Almighty God. He's the God who has created Quran and Masjid, and He's the same one who has created genome and DNA. I can worship God through Masjid and Husayniyah, and through Quran, through my prayers, or I can worship God in the laboratories. Both of them will lead me to the same truth. Why? Because both have been created by the same Lord. He is the one who has made science, and He is the one who has made religion. And there is no conflict whatever between them. But where the conflict comes from us. It is us, whether I am a secular or religious, I cannot, by my attitude, accept the reality. To this kind of person, God called ignorant. You see Jahiliyyah? Jahiliyyah, when God calls those people Jahilin or ignorance, Jahiliyyah is not a state of being, meaning that they miss something. They don't understand something. No. There are plenty of things that we do not understand. We do not know. Are we called that we are Jahili? No. A Jahiliyyah is an attitude, brothers and sisters. Meaning that when it's faced with reality, you face the guy with the reality, with the fact, he sees the fact, and still he does not believe in it. Says no, no, no. To this person is called a Jahili. That Jahili could be a scientist, could be a religious man, could be a head of a state, could be a, whatever you name it. Why? Because he has, some inner thoughts, some inner state that does not accept reality, does not accept facts. Always turns away from the facts. God saying, when you ask those people, the Jahilin, why you are idol worshippers? Why you do not come to God? What is their answer? They say that we have found that our forefathers are doing the same thing. We are following their footsteps. Not given any room for their rationality, for their intellectuality. The same thing was faced by Imam Hussein alayhi salam. On the day of Ashuraa, he came to tell the people, can you tell me, who am I? Tell me. Do you know whom you are fighting with? You see, Umar ibn Sa'd, the army commander of Ibn Ziyad, Umar ibn Sa'd was a distant cousin of Imam Hussein. He was a distant cousin of Imam Hussein. He and his father used to do the prayers behind Imam Ali alayhi salam in Kufa. He had a long career in Islamic battles and was Muslim from birth. But you see what has happened to him in the last moment? Why? Because he was a total ignorant. Not only he killed Imam Hussein, he also asked the horses, the warriors, to step on the body of Imam Hussein, to take his household as captives. You see, to this person, would you say that he did not know only because he didn't see the facts? No, he knew the facts, but he did not want to believe that. But on the contrary, look at Hurr ibn Yazid al-Riyahi, a man who was far away from Imam Hussein, but in a counter of 2 or 3 minutes, once he was faced with reality, with the truth, he accepted the truth. Another guy was called Wahab ibn Habbab al-Kalbi. Wahab was a Christian, was not even a Muslim. He passed by the valley of Karbala. Then he heard about the commotion and the 2 armies. He went farther, asked. They told him, this is the grandson of the Prophet of Islam, is facing 70,000 soldiers of an army. They came to kill him. When he checked, of course, he was blessed to have a mother. His mother was with him, and he was a newlywed groom. He was just getting married. He got married and then came to Karbala. The mother told him, let's go to Abi Abdullah al-Hussein, to the Imam Hussein's camp. He goes to Imam Hussein camp. The more he stayed, the more reality started to happen. The more clear vision he started to have, until the day of Ashura. When he came, Imam Hussein told him, Wahab, you are a newly Muslim, you don't have to fight. You can take your bride and leave. Go. You don't have to fight. You just got married recently. His wife was begging him, telling him, Wahab, don't get involved. This is an internal matter. This is between Hussein and the rest of the crowds. They know how to solve their problems. Give me your hand, let's go. But the mother said, no, Wahab. You need to stay. You need to fight. I want you to fight on that day. On the battle, when Wahab went to the battlefront, he fought for a while it was a strong objection from his wife telling him, Wahab, don't, didn't you promise? Didn't you promise me on the day of our weddings that we are never going to separate from each other? Why you want to separate from me? Why you want to kill yourself? But the mother told him, do not listen to her. Go and fight. He went, fought, and came back again. Told her, Ya Ummah, oh mother, have you accepted? Did I do a good job? She said, no. You have not done a good job. I want to see your blood spilled on the ground and get mixed with the blood of the household of Imam Hussein. I want you to fight until you die. His wife grabbed him again, begging him, Wahab, do not leave. Do not make me a widow. But he did not listen to her. He was fighting. As he was fighting, all of a sudden he hears his wife from behind. She calls him, Wahab, qatil duna tayyibin. Fight, Wahab, I want you to see you fighting. He looks at her and tells her, what is going on? Just a few minutes ago, you were discouraging me. You were telling me to not fight. She said, Ya Wahab, la talumni, inna wa'iyat al-Husayn qatta'at liyat qalbi. Do not blame me. I have seen a scene that has broken my heart. What did you see? I saw Imam Hussein standing on the turn, says, هل من ناصر ينصرنا وقلة ناصرة. Is there anyone would help us? Fight until you die. He kept fighting until he was martyred. His wife came and grabbed the sword. She was fighting. She was also martyred. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وأناخت برحلك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. All together. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.